Welcome back, everybody. Okay, time for one last delicious breakfast recipe. And what I love about this is if you've got a couple apples that need using, this is perfect. You probably have all the other ingredients right in your house. So if you want to treat the family to warm muffins on a school day morning, I mean, come on, talk about looking like a rock star. Or sometimes on the weekend, it's nice when you just want to hang out in your jammies, bake some muffins. This recipe is perfect. Making apple streusel muffins, and the streusel part makes it extra special. Now, the recipe calls for a cup of buttermilk. But don't worry, you don't have to run out to the grocery store and get buttermilk if you don't have any on hand. And most of us probably don't have it in the fridge. If you want to pick some up and you're thinking about making these muffins, perfect. But if you don't have it, what you can do is just take 1 cup of milk, and we love our Lamer's whole milk, and 1 teaspoon of white distilled vinegar. And just let that sit for a second. And then you'll have the perfect substitute for buttermilk. So there you go. Cup of milk and a teaspoon of white distilled vinegar. All right, let's get to the muffin part of this recipe. We're going to take a half of a cup of butter, and I'm just going to melt that carefully in the microwave. And then I've got just some all-purpose flour. Is it 2 cups of that, Abby? Correct? Let me just do my 2 1/4 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and a half a teaspoon of salt. And you don't need to really sift too much anymore. What you can do is just whisk it. It used to be we'd sift just to make sure that the baking soda got incorporated. I think we've all tasted that banana bread that you just bite into it and you can taste the baking soda. It kind of tastes like soap. That's no fun. So to keep that from happening, we would sift, but nowadays if we just whisk, it does the same thing. There are certain cases where you really do need to sift, maybe powdered sugar or something like that, but in this recipe, you don't have to. All right, now we're going to add brown sugar, 1 1/2 cups, vanilla, and we're just going to eyeball this, 1 teaspoon. If you go a little heavy on the vanilla, I don't think it ever hurt anything. 1 egg, and I always like to break my egg into another dish first just to make sure it's a good egg, we don't have any shell. In goes our egg, and then that melted butter. And this is our melted butter, half of a cup of it. Now with muffins, in most muffin recipes, you don't use a mixer. Not all of them, but in most of them. And for me, that's great because it's one more thing I don't have to pull out of the cupboard and wash. You just want to mix it until it's combined. So it's not like a cake batter where it's real smooth. Muffin batter is usually a little bit lumpy. But you don't want to over mix it because then you're going to get kind of rock hard muffins. We want them nice and fluffy. And we've also got about 2 apples that we've peeled and diced. I'm going to fold those in at the last. We're also going to add our milk that's been sitting with that vinegar that we turned into buttermilk. And in goes our apple. Okay. Oven temperature on this, usually for muffins I do about 350, 325. You don't want them at a real high heat. And at this point, we are going to use a scoop, which these things rock. We've got our liners that are paper liners. And you want to fill these up. These aren't like cupcakes, so you can fill them up a little bit higher than you would cupcakes. So about 3/4 of the way full. Now, these muffins would be terrific as is, but we're going to make them a little more naughty and a little more wonderful. You don't have to do this, but this is the streusel topping that's going to go on top. So it starts with some butter. And again, we're going to melt the butter real quickly. And it's just 2 tablespoons of butter, half of a cup of brown sugar, cinnamon, and flour. And that makes a real quick real quick streusel topping that you can throw together that we're just going to sprinkle on top and make these muffins extra special. I'm all about the streusel. You know, when I have a choice between apple pie and French apple pie with a crumbly on top, I'll be taking that French apple crumbly on top any day over that. So that was 1/3 cup of flour, cinnamon, and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Because we melted the butter, we don't even need a pastry blender. And this is the easiest streusel topping, really, really easy. So what you do then is you take some of the streusel topping, put a generous amount on each top of the muffin. These go into the oven for about 15 minutes or so, and they come out looking like this. Yeah, they are gorgeous. Best served warm, of course, but this makes a good, how many muffins did this make? A good 16 or so. So you're probably going to have some leftovers. Nice to pop them in the microwave just for a few minutes to warm them up. But either way, they're going to be terrific. Recipes on the website. We'll be back.